The New York Knicks. What is there not to talk about with this team? It's so funny because last year, the Knicks were on these winning streaks. They were playing great team defense. You would have thought the defense would be worse, but the offense would have gotten better. The Knicks right now are 11-11. Atlanta's played better, and the Knicks have played worse. Now, they do have a game in hand on Atlanta, and they did beat Atlanta this year already. So hopefully when Atlanta comes to New York, they actually win the game that really stands out when Trae Young's going to be dancing around.
Yes, our new favorite player.
Putting his two fingers up and waving and saluting to the fans. But Tom Thibodeau has a lot to worry about with this team. The best player in the last 2 weeks for this team is Immanuel Quickley. And Immanuel Quickley's averaging 9 points a game. A guy that stepped back this year so far, who looked really good in the first 10 games, is RJ Barrett. Last year was averaging 17 points a game, about 6 rebounds, and about the same amount of assists that he's averaging last year. This year, he's averaging 14, 5, and 2. So he's taking a step back. Better defensively, but when you're not playing two-way basketball and you expect this kid to be better offensively, that is a scary thought right now where this team is. And what does that mean? It means he's disposable and he's replaceable, and you can trade him if the trade deadline comes around and the team's going to be asking for him. But Kemba Walker lost his spot as a starting point guard. I'm not surprised. He has not looked good. He hasn't been shooting the ball very well, forcing the passes. And Julius Randle, who Knicks fans think is just a superstar. Yes, he took less money. He's taken a step back in his points. Last year, he averaged almost 24 points a game. He's averaging 19. Last year, he averaged almost 11 rebounds. He's averaging 10. Last year, he averaged 6 assists. He's averaging 5. What does this tell you about this team? Defensively, they're not elite. They're in the top 10. I look at elite top 5. Tom Thibodeau is wearing out his team again. This is the same thing that we saw with the Chicago Bulls, the Timberwolves. What does that tell you about his players? They're not conditioned right, or they don't fit the system. I look at this team offensively. There are games that they're scoring top-notch. If Fournier's not hitting three-point shots, they're losing. And Fournier looks like he's such an important piece of where this offense is going to be moving forward, because I think he's the third best offensive player on this team. His shooting ability at the three-point end, this guy could be one of the best in the league. The problem is they're not implementing him and they're not giving him opportunities to shoot.
I think the biggest thing with the Knicks right now is they have the depth and haven't been able to figure out how to use it yet. Whether it's minutes played, whether it's roles on the team, they've just been so inconsistent. There hasn't been a single consistent player, probably outside of Derrick Rose. They've had their spurts. Quigley's now playing well. Alec Burks is starting to play better. RJ Barrett had his in the beginning of the season. Obi Toppin had his in the beginning of the season, but it's just not consistent enough as a whole. And Tom Thibodeau has to realize that. In addition to draining the players, which is already a problem in today's NBA as it is, a load management, in terms of trying to balance everything out, I don't think he's done as good as last year where he was coach of the year. The Knicks have to realize that you're not going to get a consistent offense when one guy is shooting the ball a lot, or only two guys can score in a game, and you're really trusting everyone else and the defense to win you games. And that's why the Knicks have had a lot of trouble in the fourth quarter this year, more trouble in close games than we've seen in the past. The Knicks did well in close games at the beginning of the season, and then it seems like ever since they beat Milwaukee, came back the way they did, it really has been downhill. They just lost a close one to the Bulls. They just lost a close one to the Nets. The Knicks have to still find that kind of identity. In terms of Kemba Walker, there's also been reports that the Knicks are right now shopping him. There's a rumor with John Wall, which I hope doesn't happen.
That's better than Kemba Walker. You bring in John Wall.
I know, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but John Wall is a good point guard.
Oh, he's a great fit for the Thibodeau system, unless they get extra stuff back, too, from Houston. I just don't know if Houston's going to be willing to do that.
Trade John Wall and have Houston take a quarter of the contract. I would make that trade. John Wall could give you 18 and 10. He's still a very good point guard. He's very long, so he could be a good defender in a Thibodeau defense.
Mm-hmm. No, I think he's a great fit for the Thibodeau defense.
Not Damian Lillard, but
of course not.
You bring him in, and then you can use him as a trade piece for Damian Lillard.
I still think they'll end up riding him out, see how he does as a second unit type player first. Because
honestly, 3 years left on John Wall's contract, 2 years on Damian Lillard. That would be the guy that you could trade for the players and the money.
Right.
I would do that. If John Wall plays well in the system and you're ready to make a splash for Damian Lillard, then you make that trade for Damian Lillard.
It seems like Derrick Rose is obviously going to be the starter no matter what, unless Damian Lillard comes in. Probably the one consistent player. He's the one consistent player in the playoffs last year. The Knicks have really set that, but everything else is really up in the air just because of how inconsistent
Alec
individuals
Burks
have been
as a starter.
Because he's been hot now, but I'm saying it consistency-wise the whole year.
Maybe they start Alec Burks. He can handle the ball and he can shoot better than both of them. I love Derrick Rose. I love the way he plays. I did like Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker's my favorite player. He has not looked good as a Knick, and he hasn't been 100% since really he hurt his knee and his ankle with the Boston Celtics. He's one of the best point guards in the league, one of the top 5, top 6. He's no longer that anymore, and that's because of injury. And you can see the difference of his game. So it's a shame. As far as the Brooklyn Nets are concerned, 16-6, one of the hottest teams in basketball right now besides the Golden State Warriors and the Suns. By the way, Golden State wins their 13th game at home in a row, knocking off the Suns yesterday, who, by the way, they're bragging about, but Devin Booker's still injured. As far as the Brooklyn Nets are concerned, the MVP of the NBA is Kevin Durant, averaging 28.6 points a game, 7.6 rebounds a game, and 5.6, which is the most I've ever seen Kevin Durant start off in the season with assists. He's playing defense, he's playing offense, he's leading, and he's passing the ball. It's so unlike him. He's usually the closer, the finisher, not the guy, the facilitator. Well, he's become the facilitator of this team, maybe because Kyrie is no longer right now on the roster. Could you imagine if he comes back this year? You add a superstar player like Kyrie to this team. It's not even fair. Now, the depth is going to be a problem as they move forward into the playoffs, but you get Kyrie Irving back. You have a healthy, rejuvenated player. I think this team is going to be one of the harder teams to beat. If they can get Kyrie Irving back, they're my favorites to win the whole thing, Speedy.
Yeah, I think they have to be at this point now that they have other guys that you could trust at least somewhat. Yeah, the depth is still not going to be a perfect thing in comparison to other Eastern Conference threats, but
I'm not talking about the East. I'm talking about they're my favorites of winning the whole thing, the championship.
Okay, yeah.
If Kyrie Irving comes back.
Which is also fair because outside of Golden State and Phoenix, they haven't been great either. Certain other West teams have
Utah's been
better.
Good too.
But the Nets' depth is trustworthy in comparison to what they were supposed to be, and that's a good sign. LaMarcus Aldridge, 13.5 points a game. Joe Harris, 11.3. Patty Mills, 12.7. He's been starting.
Been great.
He's been starting. But if Kyrie Irving does come back, he'll be that kind of depth piece for them, too. And defensively, too, they've been pretty good, too, in comparison to what they were supposed to be. So they're making all the good progressions as the overall team in comparison and just being just a shooting team. The biggest reason for that has obviously been Kevin Durant. I agree with you, is the MVP right now in terms of just a well-rounded, all-around game. Defensively, passing, ball handling, shooting efficiently, 53.7%, shooting 86.8% free throws.
Speedy's averaging more rebounds, more points than Steph Curry, one less assist, and Steph Curry is the point guard of the Golden State Warriors. Enough said. Kevin Durant is the MVP. I don't care if Stephen Curry beat Kevin Durant when they played against one another. When you look at where your team is in first place, and you're averaging more points, which is Steph Curry's strength, more rebounds, which is another good strength that Steph Curry has, almost the same amount of assists to a point guard.
Right.
That just tells you how great of a player he is and how dangerous he can be when he's on the court. And the size and the ability. And he actually plays defense, something Steph doesn't do. And Steph is getting to that age now. He's forcing more shots and more three-pointers because he doesn't want to go to a hole. He doesn't want to get hurt. He doesn't want to hurt his ankles trying to put the ball in the net. So no offense to Steph Curry, but what we've seen with Kevin Durant, he's by far the MVP. You're talking about 30 votes. I give Kevin Durant 25 out of the 30. You want to give Steph some, you have to give Chris Paul some of the vote. They're going to put the Greek Freak there, and if LeBron ever gets
the Joker's still in there too, even though the team's been down. He's been fantastic.
Yes. Again. Denver's scary because they make the playoffs. Murray's coming off an ACL injury.
Yeah, he'll be back in February.
When Murray comes back, that's when that team's going to really take it to the next level. And all they got to do is get into the playoffs with that team. They could be very, very dangerous.